May I?
Go ahead.
I can introduce topics too.
Okay, folks, I brought Ryan back against my better judgment, and we're actually going to leap off from something that he kind of mentioned offhandedly last time I had him here, and I can't remember how many people in the comments said they actually wanted us to do this.
It was planting a seed.
Yeah, but I think there were only like 2 people who were like, oh, that might be interesting, but I'm like, screw it, we're doing it anyway. So we're going to talk about comic book properties. I think mostly we're focusing on Marvel, that we think not only should be made into movies, but more specifically should really be done as animated movies.
Yeah, and this was based, obviously, upcoming movie that we're both, I think, really excited for is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, increasingly, the closer we get to that, the more I'm like,
which is, obviously, it's not an MCU feature. It's outside of the normal Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it features a character that everybody knows, but also the spin-off character, Miles Morales. But I was thinking about that, and I was also thinking a couple of years ago with Big Hero 6.
Oh, yeah.
Another really cool movie using unused, really mostly unheard of Marvel properties, but just kind of interjecting a good animated feature about them. So I was kind of thinking, what else could they do? What other properties might be more beneficial or more fitting in the animated realm? Or, I mean, just other kind of stories that we might like to just spin off that way.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So how many do you have?
I've got 3 hard ones and then sort of like a broader sort of umbrella one that could spin into a lot of different ideas.
Okay. Well, I've got 3 solid ideas and then 2 kind of like nebulous ones.
Okay.
So I'll start with one that is a character who I absolutely want to see in some form. But the more I think about it, the more I think, I don't think live action is the way to go for this character. And that
She-Hulk?
No.
Oh.
No. Well, see, here's the thing. I consider talking about She-Hulk because I think if you were going to do the Peter David run of She-Hulk specifically, that should be animated. But I still stand by She-Hulk should be a live-action TV show, but you do the trial, the lawyer version. Anyway, we've talked about that before. No. Squirrel Girl.
Oh, okay. I was thinking she was. I was thinking he's either going to say She-Hulk, Squirrel Girl, or Ms. Marvel. But
Squirrel Girl, between the nature of the humor and it has its little fourth wall breaking moments, and I always think fourth wall breaks play better in animation.
I do too.
Because I feel like if nothing else, Looney Tunes baked that into our cartoon culture.
Yeah.
The idea of animation breaking the fourth wall, I think we go with that much easier than live action. So I think it lends itself to that, and also to be blunt about it, I'm worried that Squirrel Girl is going to look wrong in live action. And to sort of make a point to that, you don't play Marvel Puzzle Quest, do you?
I do not.
You do not. Okay, I do. I've been playing it for a long time now, a couple of years. It's just a color match puzzle game, but you get all these characters that you can use, and they have special abilities, and Squirrel Girl is one of them. Now, they have, unique to the game, images for each of these characters. And when they have a character normally drawn in a stylized fashion, they try and do them more realistic. And she looks weird and kind of freaky, like to the point that a friend of mine who plays this said that he had a really hard time convincing his daughter that she should try Squirrel Girl because the first thing she saw was that image from that game. And she's like, no, she looks freaky. I don't like that. It's something about the buck teeth and realistic human proportions. Like, that's... No, that doesn't work. So that was kind of the nail in the coffin for me. Like, I want more Squirrel Girl. I think she needs to be animated to actually sell this character and have her charm come through the way that it needs to.
I can see that, yeah. I kind of figured like you would pick something along those lines, which is why I didn't put it on my list, but I completely agree with you. And to your point about fourth wall breaking and how that sort of like fits into the animated realm, I'm actually going to jump a little bit forward on my list, but that segues into the first one that I will mention, which is Deadpool.
Well, now, see, this one's interesting because we almost had Deadpool the animated series.
So this is what I'm thinking. Like, once the once Disney officially acquires the Fox properties, X-Men, Fantastic Four, they're going to reboot them. They're going to start over from the way. A lot of people have been like, Deadpool is still kind of on a hot streak. What are you going to do with him? Are you just going to scrap that? We have kind of made the point that you could make another Deadpool movie, and because of the weird fourth wall breaking, like the nature of the character lends himself to pointing out that, hey, what studio's producing this movie, or didn't a different actor play you last time, or something like that.
Are we still allowed to say this now that they're owned by Disney?
Right. But I think, and leave Deadpool 2, or if they had made, I don't think they will at this point, make it like an X-Force. But if they were to do something, leave that character there. But you could continue that series, or just a different interpretation of the character. Still have Ryan Reynolds do the voice. You can bring back some of the characters and make it an R-rated animated feature, the kind that you would rarely see go to the theaters. But I think enough people went to the theater to see an R-rated superhero movie like Deadpool and Logan.
Yeah.
Those movies made money. You gotta imagine an animated feature could still have a good production value, but cost prohibitively less.
Yeah.
So the return wouldn't have to be as much. But would Disney do that type of thing, an R-rated animated feature? And outsource it to one of their smaller...
I was going to say the only way they do that is if they don't fold Fox Animation into Disney. Because if it has to in any way carry a brand that, if not is Disney itself, is a Disney adjacent brand, like if it carried a Pixar label or anything like that, they would never, ever, ever let that happen.
Or... you could do it a PG-13. The comics have been doing it a PG-13.
I mean, I would say that because here's the funny thing. In animation, you are actually allowed to get away with a lot worse stuff. So, it's really weird to me that now DC animated movies have gotten into being R-rated, which is dumb, because if you look at the PG-13 stuff like Son of Batman and Throne of Atlantis, that is bloody as heck. So while they may have to tone down the language, and the Deadpool movies haven't been actually particularly sexually explicit, so as long as they dial back the language, they could actually get away with being as violent in a cartoon as they have been in the live action movies, and get away with a PG-13. I mean, we're seeing that already.
Right.
So I think if you went animated, I don't think it would actually be as much of a hit on Deadpool to get a PG-13.
Yeah. And I think the same fan base would turn in for an animated Deadpool movie. I don't think you would lose that many fans. Just be fans of that particular character and that property. I think if you said we're getting Ryan Reynolds and Marina Baccarin or whoever to come back, they're still voicing the same characters or something, and we're just transferring, making it a little certainly an animated or cartoonish or something like that. I don't think the audience takes such a hit.
No, I think that's fair. Yeah. So next one, I'm going to get more specific with this. Not only do I think this should be animated, I'm going to give you a style this should be animated.
Okay.
This should be done in anime style.
Okay.
And that's Ghost Rider.
I had him on my list too.
Okay. Well, then we can compare visions for this.
Okay.
Because in my mind, you do Ghost Rider like one of the bizarre, bonkers... I'm not saying necessarily do it R-rated, but in the style of the R-rated style animes from the 80s and 90s, things like Akira and Wicked City.
I was thinking like Vampire Hunter D or something like that, or even more contemporary, like the Netflix Castlevania type of thing.
Yes, I think Ghost Rider would be perfect for something like that, because that has been one of the many problems with live action adaptations is Ghost Rider himself looks good, everything else looks like crap because they have to pour all the money into how expensive that effect is, which is why they took Blackheart, a character who was basically only distinguishable by his very unique look, and had him just played by Wes Bentley in a goth outfit. So oh God, you talk about a character custom built for anime style animation. Bring Blackheart back and do him right.
Sure, yeah, all of the demons and everything. I mean, you could do a whole Spirits of Vengeance thing with bringing Lilith and the vampires and everything.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, I was right in there. I was thinking, could they do some of the horror properties, in particular Ghost Rider? And the visual effects with the motorcycle, with the flaming skull and everything, and what kind of animated style would I fit? And that was my first thought. I was like, Vampire Hunter D.
Yeah.
Like something like that kind of anime style from that particular era in that house. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's funny. We both kind of locked in on that one. What else have I got? Okay. So I'm going to depart from Marvel just briefly.
Okay.
Because this is what I've talked about this property before, and I've talked about how I think you could do it as a film, and I stand by what I said when I did that. But I do think if you did it animated as a TV series, there's one specific aspect of the comics that you could bring into an animated adaptation of it, and that's Sandman.
Okay.
Because one of the interesting things about Sandman is, I mean, at this point you buy it, it's in trades.
Sure.
Basically, every volume had a new artist. Every volume had a new art style. Imagine an animated show where every season was in a new art style. And I think something like Sandman, which is ultimately a story about stories,
right?
It's all about the power of stories and how stories shape our lives, that each new season is a new story in a new style. And I think it's just, I don't have it more fleshed out than that, but I think just adding that element into a Sandman adaptation would be really cool, and it's something I think you could do like in an animated TV format that just is an aspect that simply just gets lost when you translate to live action.
I agree. I definitely, and I hadn't thought about that, but it makes perfect sense. And yeah, if I was going to approach an adaptation of that because of the scope of the original saga and trying to honor that and be truthful to that, it would take a massive undertaking to do it live action. But approaching it with an animated style of different looks, different styles, different visual language. Every season or every story arc, that could be really, really cool too. So yeah, I'm down with that one.
Cool.
So, all right, for my next one, going back to Marvel, a very different style now, different from Deadpool, from Ghost Rider, from Sandman, everything like that. Going back to very kid-friendly, very kid-centered. Like this would be a kids movie, and it's a property that Marvel has talked about. Maybe we'll do this Phase 4, Phase 5 as a live-action thing. I actually think it would be really cool as a animated kids property, and it is the Power Pack.
Okay, I know the name. I don't know that.
And I haven't read a whole lot of them either. I'm not that familiar, although I would recommend, there's a podcast dedicated to the comics and the characters, hosted by two guys named Jeff and Rick. It's called Unpacking the Power of the Power Pack, which is a name that packs a lot of power.
Wow.
Check that out. But
love that title.
Yeah, essentially it's a family. It's 4 kids. Their last name is Power, and each one of the kids has it's not unlike the Fantastic Four. They're caught up in a weird kind of experiment. Each one of them has a slightly different power. Each one has a different personality traits and all these little things. And because they're family, they're siblings, they're 2 boys, 2 girls. The way they interact and play off each other, you could incorporate all of the stuff from the kids' cartoons that we grew up with, from superhero tropes to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to all of these other things. But I really think something like that. Don't bring it into the same Marvel Cinematic Universe that just had the snap shirt that broke everybody's heart. I was like, let that be a cartoon for that particular, pre-teen age group. That really like 6 to 12-year-old age group, I think would really get something out of this. And that's not to disparage or say like that the characters aren't worthy of adult stories, because again, I don't know enough about their story content to really make a judgment on that. I'm just saying what I do know about them, I think they would lend themselves really well to a kids animated movie. So,
all right. So I've got one more, and I've got like one more I'll toss off at the very end, but I've got one that I bring up absolutely anytime. I'm like, these should be made into movies. I'm like, just make this a friggin' movie again. And I'm now crossing my fingers that we could possibly springboard this off of Into the Spider-Verse, and that's Spider-Man 2099. So, look, here's the thing. As much as I think there's absolutely no reason you could not do that live action and have it go well. The simple truth is that it's a spin-off character.
Yeah.
And the cost of properly realizing not only the character but that world, because you've basically got to build the Blade Runner world from the ground up, in addition to having a superhero who is doing all this. So you've basically got to have the combined budget of Blade Runner 2049 and Spider-Man Homecoming. That's a little cost prohibitive, especially with somebody who is just a spin-off character. You do it animated, you immediately control the cost without having to sacrifice the world that he lives in, which, as much as I love Miguel O'Hara as a character, half the appeal of that is the world that he is operating in, and beyond just the appeal of him as the hero.
Yeah, I get, like, that is the question, and it would not surprise me if Into the Spider-Verse is a hit. I think it would be great if it lent itself to sequels. We know Spider-Gwen is going to be a featured character in that.
For my money, she's the first one who gets a spin-off if they do.
I would think if she's a hit, and there's no reason why she shouldn't be. I mean, she was a hit with the fan. There's a fan base for her.
I don't know anyone who doesn't like Spider. I know a couple of people who are iffy on the concept of her, but I don't know anyone who looks at that outfit and hears that name and goes, no. Everyone is like, okay, look, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would think if Into the Spider-Verse is a hit, I would love to see them get more spin-off ancillary Spider-Man characters. And I think Spider-Gwen would be the first up, but then maybe Spider-Man 2099, that would be cool too.
I think that would work well. So you only had the 3, or did you have
I've got one more, and this is sort of a big, kind of more sprawling thing, because it opens up a lot of different avenues. And that is filling in some gaps, or just telling other stories within the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Okay.
Starring the characters that we know, but more or less disposable stories. So you could, let me present it this way. You could have a story about Thor and the Asgardians that maybe takes place before the first Thor movie, or between Thor and Thor the Dark World, or between Thor and Thor Ragnarok. And it has the same cast. You get Chris Hemsworth to voice the character. You get some of the same actors to play that. And it's just kind of doing its own little thing, but it wouldn't have necessarily the consequences because you've already got the chapters before and after. So it's just kind of an in-between little side venture to give you more exposure to this character. But it could be just as easily to divorce from the main movies as the Netflix shows or the ABC TV shows or whatever. It can be part of the whole world if you want it to be, but it doesn't have to be. And you could do that with Captain America. You could do that with Iron Man. And really any character. You could flesh out some of the other ones. I actually thought, and this was, depending on where they go, if they end up making a Nova movie, one of the things that I thought would be cool for a Nova origin, and this could be done animated or as the live action, but for the purposes of this, it would be an animated one, is actually start it with what was mentioned in Infinity War, which is Thanos' destruction of Xandar and wiping out the Nova Corps to get the Power Stone.
Yeah.
And basically taking that moment and then transplanting the seed from the comic book Annihilation storyline.
Okay.
Which showed the Annihilation Wave and Annihilus wiping out the Nova Corps, and all of the power from all of the other Novas who were dead went into the one last living Nova. Basically have the same type of thing doing it. You've only got one Nova Corps member left alive, except in this case, instead of the Annihilation, it was because of Thanos wiping out Xandar. And that kind of being the springboard for the origin for this character. I would like to see that in live action, but for these purposes, it could also be a cool animated feature. And like the Green Lantern animated series that came out or whatever, you could do a lot of cool space stuff, space adventures in an animated format. So, springing off of those, another way of doing the same thing with these characters, if you didn't want to tie them to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or if you couldn't get the same actors to come back and voice them, I think now we're at a point where, like Spider-Man and like the X-Men, there is enough fan support for the Avengers characters, like with merchandising, with just general name recognition. I think they could do an animated Captain America movie or an animated Iron Man movie or whatever. And again, thinking like this, the budget for this is not going to be the same thing as a live action movie.
No.
So your return doesn't have to be $500 million.
No, it doesn't.
But I think there is enough of a market that these would not be wasted efforts or loss leaders.
Well, I think additionally, it wouldn't be a bad idea with Disney planning to launch its own streaming service. Those would be the sorts of projects that would be pretty good things to put on as exclusives to that streaming service.
Sure.
A bit like what is it, DC Universe or whatever it is trying to do with bringing back Young Justice and with the Titans show.
Right.
So that's my immediate thought for how that fits into Disney's business model. Because I think if you go theatrical release and stuff like that, you do risk flat out overload.
Yeah.
But I think making those available on a streaming service and making them exclusive to that, it gives you, because Disney already has especially with having now acquired Fox, has an amazing catalog of stuff that they can make available on that. But if they can offer exclusive stuff like that as well, that's a good sell. And interestingly, I don't know if you and I have ever talked about Hellboy, but the Hellboy franchise did something similar to what you're talking about, because they released 2 direct-to-DVD, and they also showed on Cartoon Network animated films that I believe came out between the first and the second.
Okay.
They wanted to do a third one, but then by then I think the second movie had happened and didn't have the returns that they wanted. They weren't going to do a third one, and they were like, that didn't happen. But and I actually own both of these, and I like them more than the first Hellboy movie. Actually,
I wasn't a fan of either of the Hellboy movies that I saw.
I like the second one, but I like these more. It's It's Blood and Iron and Storm of Swords.
Okay.
And they've got the exact same voice cast coming back. You've got Ron Perlman. You've got Doug Jones.
Okay. Yeah.
They're all back voicing these characters, and I thought it was great. I thought it worked. So there is even a template. I mean, you could say it didn't work because they didn't keep doing it, but that was because the franchise as a whole kind of deflated. But I think there is a template and there's a precedent for doing something along those lines. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking that I don't know if we're going to get another Thor movie, and I felt like the last one finally got the tone that a lot of fans wanted, and I think that they at least found out that this version of Thor, and Chris Hemsworth in particular, is really funny.
Yeah.
And when you play to that strength, which I think they've done actually more in the Avengers movies and in Ragnarok, when you play that level of Thor, that's a really entertaining action-adventure hero that people want to see.
It is. Well, it's
if we never get that again, I was like, give you an animated version of that a try, and put him with his friends who were killed off in the last movie, and have him just do like a crazy fighting the rock trolls or going out into space again. And
see, it's not the version of Thor I would have asked for, but now that I've seen it, it's what I want more of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm the same way. I was like, this isn't this. They never really gave me the Thor that I want, but that one at least I would watch again.
Yeah. So I've got one more, and I'm just going to toss this one off, and I'm not going to go into a ton of detail because it's spoilerish for this particular property.
Okay.
But anyone who knows this property will get why I'm saying this pretty much off the bat, and if you don't, just go read it. Animal Man.
Okay.
Particularly the Grant Morrison run of Animal Man, and sort of just bring it back to what we said about fourth wall breaking.
Yeah.
The level of fourth wall breakage of that particular run.
First of all, you have to say Animal Man.
Oh God. But I feel like if they ever tried to pull off what that arc pulled off in live action, audiences would rebel. I think if you did it in animation, you could get away with it.
Without getting into spoilers, then it's an animation, but it has to pull a little head flip like the Lego movie does. So again, if you read it, you'll understand. That would be interesting. That would be fun.
So I think that's all I had. So Ryan, thanks for coming on back and doing this with me. And thank you for joining us, folks. So what do you think of any of the stuff we pitched, or what comic book property do you think would be best suited for animation? Whatever it is, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's a whole bunch of buttons and stuff and links down there, including one to my Patreon. So feel free to check those out and explore around there. And remember, folks, you are the council and I just run the meetings. So until next time, this council is adjourned. I'm never letting you intro again.
You said I was the council.